Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news video here to discuss. Looking at the Stanley Cup Final, Game 3 is finished. Game 4 is going to start soon. We'll figure out what happened in that game. We also going to look at some signings from our past couple of days, some injury updates, a couple of pieces of news including Utah, and we've also got a couple of trade rumors involving the Utah franchise, Columbus, Vancouver, Carolina, and the San Jose Sharks. And with all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Talking channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support and able to with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss in today's video. Now as usual, I'm going to start today's video off with a quick game review video here. We had Game 3 happen over on Thursday. It was a really intriguing and interesting game, so we'll touch on that here. So first period, it was pretty well played for the Oilers. It was a really good, more dominant period for them again. Unlike period 1 in Game 2, it was a really good period for the Edmonton Oilers, but unfortunately, late in the first period, thanks to a beautiful tip from Sam Reindhardt, the Florida Panthers were able to get a 1-0 lead, and they took that 1-0 lead into the intermission, and that was really good stuff there for Florida. So they were once again outplayed, Bobrovsky was once again brilliant, and Florida winds up taking the 1-0 lead into the second period. So really good stuff there for Florida. Early on, though, in the second period, Edmonton would press, and eventually Warren Foegele will get a breakaway goal to put it past Bobrovsky, making this a tie game. It was a really good goal by Foegele to make it really interesting, but then the Florida Panthers were able to start piling it on. Midway through the second period, misplay behind the net from Stuart Skinner led to a Tarasenko goal, which gave the Panthers a 2-1 lead. A giveaway from Darnell Nurse gave the puck to Matthew Tkachuk, which really quickly turned it around, gave it to Sam Bennett, roofed it on Skinner, made it 3-1, and then there was a 2-on-1 after another defensive collapse from Edmonton, which led to Evan Rodriguez passing it to Alexander Barkov, who put it home, making it 4-1. And at that point, I think most people thought this game was out of reach. No way Edmonton was going to score 3 times on Bobrovsky. So that's why it went into the third period, 4-1 Florida. About 5-6 minutes into the third period, the Oilers were able to get a lucky bounce. Puck goes in off of a Florida player, so Broberg is able to get credit for the goal, and the Oilers were able to cut the deficit to 4-2. With I think about 5 minutes left in the third period, the Oilers were able to get another one. This time it was Ryan McLeod with a beautiful tip to make it 4-3, and that's as close as they were able to get. Panthers would hold on. Aaron Ekblad made a fantastic play late in the game to hold the puck in the corner, and the Panthers now hold a 3-0 series lead heading into Game 4 of the series. So this was a really good game from Edmonton. They were finally able to get a couple of goals on Bobrovsky, which is fantastic. And just at this point in time, it was not enough, and their defensive collapse was really hurt them. I still wouldn't put this game on Skinner. He was a pretty good goaltender in this game, and I still think that Edmonton still needs to try and figure out a way to solve Bobrovsky way more times than the Panthers are able to solve Skinner, and I think that they need to try and figure out a way to sort of lock down defensive mistakes so they don't make any more of those. So interesting stuff there. We are on the verge of our first sweep in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it was 1998. So it's been a while since we've had a sweep in the Stanley Cup Final, and we could have one as early as today. So interesting stuff there. So Game 4 will go later tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time. If the Panthers win, the Stanley Cup will be presented to the Florida Panthers for the first time ever in Edmonton. So that'll be interesting to note there. If the Edmonton Oilers are able to win, there will be a Game 5. I think it is on Tuesday that will happen. So interesting stuff there. I wouldn't be overly shocked if the Oilers came out today, played their hearts out, and got one win to avoid the sweep. But with the way Florida's playing, I would not be overly surprised if the Panthers are able to complete the series right now and sweep them. So interesting stuff there. Reindhardt and Barkov had a goal and an assist in this game, and Bennett and Tarasenko both also scored for the Oilers in the win, while McDavid had 2 assists, and Broberg, Foegele, and McLeod were 3 goal scorers for the Oilers in the loss, as the Oilers failed to close the gap in the series. So bad stuff there for Edmonton. So interesting stuff there, and we'll have to wait and see if the Florida Panthers wind up winning the Stanley Cup later today. Going over to a couple of signings for the past couple of days, we actually have a couple of interesting signings and some pretty big ones too. So we'll get to all those here. First was the Colorado Avalanche. They've given an ELC to undrafted forward Jerry Inala. Inala, who's a left winger, gets a 1-year ELC with AV of $950,000. That'll begin at the start of next year. This past year, he played over in the SHL, put up 16 goals, 28 points in 42 games, after having 26 points in 52 games the year prior. Looks really good. I think eventually could be a solid maybe bomb 6 forward for the Avalanche, so it's a pretty good sign there to sign an undrafted player to his ELC. The Seattle Kraken have signed second second round pick in the 2023 draft, Oscar Fisker Molgaard, who's a center, to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $925,000 that begins to start next year. Molgaard has actually been doing pretty well over in the SHL. 2 years ago during his draft year, put up 4 goals and 7 points in 41 games. This past year had 9 goals and 21 points in 50 SHL games. Looks like a very fantastic player. Could eventually, I think, be maybe a decent second, third line center for the Seattle Kraken. So it's a pretty good sign there for Seattle. And I think eventually Molgaard should be a really good player. Then you go over to the Ottawa Senators. They signed another RFA forward. We talked about Crookshanks in our last video. They signed left winger Cole Reindhardt, who was another RFA forward, to a 1-year contract extension with a view of $625,000 that will begin to start next year. He does have 1 game of NHL experience, but has basically been an AHL player the past couple of years. 2 years ago, had 11 goals and 34 points in 66 games. This year had 8 goals and 23 points in 56 games. So looks like a very fantastic player. I think eventually could be a solid bomb 6 forward there for Ottawa. Definitely a call-up option, so pretty good solid signing there for the Ottawa Senators. And then the 2 bigger signings that happened over the past couple of days. One, Kakko. Now, I thought there was a very lucky chance he might be moved. I think this sort of negates him being moved at this point in time, but Kakko, who's a right winger, was taken second overall in the 2019 draft, signs a 1-year contract extension with the New York Rangers with the AV of $2.4 million. So at this point, I think the Rangers are just thinking of this as like a second Lafreniere situation. Last year, there was a lot of talk about Lafreniere being moved. They signed him, and he worked out fantastic. So if Kakko can work out really well this year, and he fits in really well, I think there's a very lucky chance the Rangers trying to extend him again next year. If he doesn't, I think there's a very lucky chance we could see him be moved. Kakko last year had 18 goals and 40 points in 82 games. Really took a step forward. Was a really good player last year. This year took a really big step back. Was still a really good defensive forward, good two-way forward. Still trying to round out his game, but only got 13 goals and 19 points in 61 games this year. So he was a little bit banged up, but he also didn't have overly productive season this year. So bad stuff there for Kakko, but he gets a $2.4 million extension, which is a tiny bit of a raise from his $2.1 million deal he had before, and I think he could still be a really good player there for the Rangers. So solid signing there for New York. And then the Carolina Hurricanes have signed one of their pending UFA blue liners, and that is Jalen Chatfield. Chatfield, who's a right shot defenseman, a lot of people thought might wind up leaving via free agency, signs a 3x3 deal. He has a 3-year deal with a $3 million that'll begin to start next year. So it's a pretty good sign there for the Hurricanes. Chatfield actually worked out really well this year, had a career high in points. Last year put up 6 goals and 14 points in 78 games. The past year just finished up. He put up 8 goals, which is a career high, and 22 points, which is a career high, in only 72 games. So looks like a very fantastic player. Could still be a really solid third pair defenseman. Might even get into a bigger role with the Hurricanes if the Pesce and Shea leave and aren't able to fill those roles. So interesting stuff there, but it does seem like Chatfield is going to be a very big piece of the Carolina Hurricanes' future as they sign into a 3x3 deal. So very good stuff there. Lots of interesting signings from over the past couple of days. Kakko signs an extension in New York. Chatfield signs an extension in Carolina. Reindhardt signs an extension in Ottawa, while Inaugural signs an ELC with Colorado, and Molgaard signs an ELC with the Seattle Kraken. So some interesting stuff there. Going over to a couple of injury updates. Not too much here, but Barkov was cleared to play and did indeed play in Game 3 of the Cup Final. So very good stuff there for the Florida Panthers. While Vander Kane missed Game 3 due to the injury, and Nurse was able to play in Game 3 for the Edmonton Oilers. So interesting stuff there. Good to see Barkov and Nurse were able to get back into game action after leaving Game 2 due to injuries. But bad news to see Kane wasn't able to go, and hopefully is able to go for Game 4. So some interesting stuff there. Next one over to a quick piece of news. Now, the Utah franchise's name has still not been unveiled yet. They're still voting for another, I think, 5 or 6 days, and then there's probably going to be a month or two before we figure out the name. But there has been some official announcements on what the jerseys and the logo will look like for the starting year. So I'll show you over here. The jersey looks pretty good. It's black, light blue, white. It looks pretty good. A lot of people are saying this is probably going to be the colors for the other jersey that they're going to have during the 25-26 season when they have their actual team name and stuff. So that looks pretty good, like the jerseys. I've seen a lot of people link this jersey to really similar to being like the Winnipeg Ice old jersey. So that's interesting to note there, but that's a pretty good jersey, just sort of like the PWHL, just the name on the jersey side of it right now. So interesting stuff there. And then the logo is like this. So it's not a really huge logo, a really creative logo or anything. That's just the Utah Hockey Club, which is what they'll probably be called for the first year. So interesting stuff there, but we do know the logo for the Utah franchise. We do know the jerseys for the Utah franchise, and I think that's pretty good to see that we got some confirmation on that. They'll probably see it debuted in the draft, and I think this is going to be a really good step forward for Utah. And I think eventually in the next month or two, we will have an announcement on what the team name will actually be. So interesting stuff there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors from the past couple of days. So first, we're going to start the trade rumor portion of the video off by talking about the Vancouver Canucks. According to Frank Seravalli, he's talked to a couple of league sources that say the Vancouver Canucks are actively shopping Ilya Mikheyev. I don't think that comes as too much of a surprise. We know the Canucks are in a really tight cap situation, could really use some more cap flexibility. Mikheyev's $4.75 million cap hit could really help them. He didn't really look overly great in the playoffs. So he was playing with the Pettersson at points. He was playing lower in the lineup at points. This is not a really good contract for the Canucks. And with them trying to keep Zadorov and Lindholm and Ronick at the right price, they can't keep Mikheyev as well at this point in time. So it seems that they are trying to move him. Now, will the team be able to take him on just as is? Or will the Canucks have to add a piece to move off from him? I'm not exactly sure. He might have a contract that the Canucks may have to attach an asset to move him. So not exactly sure how much the Canucks will be willing to move in order to move Mikheyev. But at 4.75 for this year plus next year, I think there's a couple of teams that might have some interest in a solid speedy forward like that. But it just hasn't worked out in Vancouver, and it seems like the Canucks, according to Frank Seravalli and the insiders he's talked to, are shopping Mikheyev. And it could happen that we see a trade in the not distant future around Mikheyev. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But it does sound like Mikheyev is a very likely candidate to get traded by the Vancouver Canucks. Going over to Carolina Hurricanes, there's been some recent talk talking about Jacob Slavin. Now, it's not officially guaranteed, and it will definitely not be officially guaranteed until July 1st at the very earliest, but there has been some major improvements in contract talks surrounding Jacob Slavin and the Carolina Hurricanes. That's pretty good for the Carolina Hurricanes. We know that Slavin's about to be entering the final year of his deal. He's the team's best defenseman, so signing him to an extension is a must for the Carolina Hurricanes. I would say he gets somewhere between a 6 and an 8 year deal with the AV of like maybe $8.5 million would be my guess. Maybe a little bit lower than that. Not exactly sure, but I think Slavin's definitely going to get a raise, and I think he's definitely going to be really good to extend in Carolina. I think that's one of the Carolina Hurricanes' top priorities for this offseason. So to get Slavin signed will be a huge boost for the Carolina Hurricanes, and it'll sort of show them what sort of cap situation they're looking with next year. So really interesting. No official things at this point in time, especially not until July 1st, but it does sound like there's progress being made on a Slavin the contract extension, and Carolina could eventually in the not distant future sign Slavin to an extension. So it's really good news there for Carolina. Going over to a couple more pieces of news, according to a couple of recent reports, the Utah franchise could try and look to target a couple of really good centers. Now they have a few future good centers such as Logan Cooley, such as Barrett Hayton, but they could definitely use some more veteran type centers, or at least veteran top six forwards who could really work well in that team, and they have cap space to make moves in this offseason. So according to a couple of reports, they could try and target guys like Chandler Stephenson and Elias Lindholm. Now Stephenson's most likely not going to be back with Vegas. He's a really good speedy top six winger or forward. He can work at both positions. He's really good. He fit in extremely well with Mark Stone after arriving in Vegas, but it doesn't seem like Vegas has the cap space right now to bring him back. It seemed like Hurdle was sort of the Stephenson replacement. So Stephenson's probably going to go to the market, probably looking for a major raise on his $2.75 million cap hit. My guess will be he gets somewhere between $5 and $6 million. I think there's a very likely chance that Stephenson hits the market and gets a really good raise. Utah could be a really good fit for him. They have a really good young team. They could use another fast forward like him. If they could sign him to like a 2 to 4 year deal with an AV of between $5.5 and $6.5 million, I think they would be willing to do that. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but they could have some interest in Stephenson. Could also have some interest in the guy like Elias Lindholm. We know that he's looking for a massive upgrade on his pay, looking for like $8.5, maybe even $9 million. Not sure if Utah would do that, but they could definitely use a solid two-way shutdown center like a Lindholm, who could really mentor some of the younger guys. He could work really well as like a 1 or 2C in Utah, and I think that could be a really good pick there for the Utah franchise. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who they try and target in the free agency. I'm sure they'll target a couple of guys, but it does sound like, according to a couple of reports I've seen, Utah may have some interest in trying to bring in a couple of top-end centers in free agency like Stephenson and Lindholm, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Going over to San Jose Sharks, according to a couple of recent reports from David Pagnotta, he thinks that Laine and Couture is going to be starting to skate soon, potentially in early July, and that might increase some trade speculation around Couture and some trade interest. Now, we know Couture really wants a fresh start, doesn't want to be in San Jose during the rebuild anymore. We know the problem for San Jose is they don't have any more retention retention slots, so moving him as full $8 million cap hit would be an extremely tight and extremely difficult move to make, but it could be a really good fit there for the San Jose Sharks if they could move on from him. A couple of teams that David Pagnotta did link that could have some interest in Laine and Couture would be the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators, and the Nashville Predators. Now, for the Sabres, it makes a little bit of sense. I'm not sure if Couture would be a solid second-line center in Buffalo. They have some really good centers in Cousins and Thompson, but he could maybe work on the wing, or he maybe could be a solid third-line center, but we know that the Sabres really want some more veteran help and some more goal-scoring ability in that lineup. If Couture is healthy, I could definitely see that team have some interest in a guy like Laine Couture, so that makes some sense. He also linked Ottawa. Now, I think that's a little bit less likely. They have a solid 1-2-3 punch down the middle of Norris, as long as he's healthy, Pinto, and Stützle. I don't think they need a Couture, but he could definitely work maybe on the wing as like a solid veteran guy who can definitely help them maybe take the next step. So I wouldn't say it's the best of options there for Ottawa if they're trying to add top six forward, but I could see why they might want to add him, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And then also Nashville. We know the Preds are looking for a top six center. Couture could definitely fit that role. He could take the 1C spot away from Ryan O'Reilly. I could see the Preds have some major interest in a guy like Laine Couture, even at his 3 years and $8 million cap hit. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens there, but according to David Pagnotta, it sounds like Laine Couture is starting to get a little bit healthier, could start skating in the not distant future, and that might increase some trade speculation, some trade interest, and teams like Ottawa, Buffalo, and Nashville, maybe teams who have the most interest in a guy like this. And lastly, going over to Patrik Laine. We talked about this in our last video. It sounds like Laine will get moved at some point. Three teams who seem to be linked to Laine right now. One is the Montreal Canadiens. I've seen this brought up before. Even Laine and the Jackets were mutually working together to try and get a fresh start. The Canadiens are trying to look for a big splash. They could definitely look at a guy like Laine. He's on the younger side of things. No, he's still 2 years left at $8.7 million, and the Canadiens may have to ask the Jackets to eat some money. Or I could see that the Jackets try and maybe get a guy like Gallagher or Anderson and try and take off the Canadiens' hands. I mean, both those guys make, I think, $5.5 million, if I'm correct. Maybe Gallagher makes $6.5, not exactly sure. But it will be similar money. It would still be a little bit more on the Canadian side to take, but still, I think something like that could work for the Columbus Blue Jackets, where they offload Laine, give him this fresh start he needs, and they're able to get a solid veteran guy like a Gallagher or an Anderson who can fit in the middle six. Well, for the Canadians, it could offload one of their contracts that they're looking to offload right now in Gallagher or Anderson, and it could also help them bring in a solid top six sniper in Laine, who I think in Montreal, in the right position, could be an extremely good goal scorer for the Canadians. So it'll be interesting to see about that, but it does seem like the Habs do have some interest. I've also seen the Pittsburgh Penguins name popped up. Now, I think that's a little bit less likely given their already high cap situation, and they would definitely have to try and work something out, but I could see Laine be a really good piece. I mean, put Laine on a line that already has guys like maybe a Malkin line or a Crosby line, put him with a good playmaker, and he could be a fantastic goal scorer in Pittsburgh. So, like I said, I'm not sure what sort of a trade package you go back to Columbus. I wouldn't be overly shocked if a guy like Riley Smith could be a guy who goes to Columbus to try and offload the cap to try and make it work, but it does seem like Pittsburgh may have some interest in a guy like Laine, and I think that's reasonable given the fact they could use another goal scorer. And lastly, another team who I saw on the Leadership 32 Slots podcast be linked to Laine was the Utah franchise. Jeff Merrick was sort of trying to speak it into existence. Laine could be a really good fit there. You know, the Utah franchise is trying to add some more big pieces to try and improve this team. Laine could be a really good piece there to work with some of the younger guys. So it seems like Utah, Pittsburgh, and Montreal may have some major interest in Patrik Laine, and it seems like those teams could all have some major interest going over the next couple of days. So I'll have to wait and see on that. But that's what we're going to talk about for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think about Laine? Does he get moved? And if so, could Pittsburgh, Montreal, or Utah be a landing spot for him? Do you think Couture gets moved this offseason? And if so, could Nashville, Ottawa, or Buffalo be a landing spot? Do you think Utah could target Stephenson or Lindholm in free agency? Do you see the Carolina Hurricanes extending Slavin in the not too distant future? Do you see Mikheyev being moved by the Vancouver Canucks in the not too distant future? Plus, what do you think about the Utah jersey and the Utah logo? What do you think about the signings and injury updates for the past couple of days? And what do you think about Florida taking a 3-0 series lead in the Stanley Cup final? Definitely let you guys thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today. We're going to like this video, and if you're like to subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support and with you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so we can discuss today's video. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So I'm going to check that out. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.